All right, let me get started. Welcome to the Virginia Solar Summit live stream. I'm your host, Dan French. We're so happy to have you all back today. We had a tremendous time in the spring at the 2021 Virginia Solar Summit, where we learned so many things over an exciting and very substantive 3 days. And it's great to be back with you again, even in a virtual format, but we're doing so because there's so much going on in the Virginia market. We are a regional event. We are focused on the greater Virginia region. We're tactically focused on Virginia, but we have regional, strategic, and kind of global concerns. So I know we have a lot of people plugging in from all over the world. I saw in the registration many different time zones. So wherever you're plugging in now or later, welcome. We're recording. We'll be chopping this up, putting it out as a podcast. Later it will be available, so you will be able to harvest the great substance that we'll be bringing to you in this format from Virginia, from the region, and indeed from all around the world. Some of the best and the brightest, and I see some familiar names already. So many brilliant folks doing the beautiful work to save our planet. So welcome back to the Virginia Solar Summit live stream. I want to share my screen, and we'll get right into today's presentation. I'm just going to begin a little bit. Again, we are co-hosted. We're a collaborative group with DEQ, Virginia DMME, the West Virginia Brownfield Assistance Center, and Appalachian Voices. We're all our co-hosts at the last summit, and kind of this year, some of their folks are joining us again. And just as a sign of our collaborative spirit here, and we are substantive, and we try to be as constructive as we can be, all about ground-mounted solar power. Sometimes Appalachian Voices on the right, Sue's DEQ on the left, but we're all working together and collaboratively to build this kind of highest and best future for solar. But some of the big news, I'll just do a few kind of updates at the top. Before we get to our great speakers today, the big news, as everyone probably knows, is DMME is not DMME anymore. Or starting tomorrow, there'll be Virginia Energy. Dun, 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 dun. It's kind of a big to do. Not really pivoting the agency so much as just kind of refocusing. They got a lot of great people over there, and they're turning into the wind of the Renaissance, just like we are, just like everyone is, because the boom is certainly on, as we'll get into in this episode of the live stream and all future episodes. Our first guest today will be Ms. Chelsea Barnes from Appalachian Voices, Regional Policy Maven, working at one of the most important shops there, Appalachian Voices, and not to steal her thunder or their thunder, but I'm sure a lot of folks on the call already know they're doing tremendous work. They've just won some big art grants, and that they're a very powerful voice for the solar power renaissance, bringing kind of solar to us all. And then we'll follow up my discussion with Chelsea with Mr. Vince Maiden from the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality, a real grizzled redevelopment veteran. He's got more than 2 decades in the book there at DEQ and worked in communities across Virginia of all different types and stripes. We are brought to you today by Dominion Energy, the largest electrical utility in Virginia, who's also really pivoted strongly into the Renaissance. There's the Clean Energy Act there in Virginia, and they've fully mobilized and building a lot of solar. We'll be bringing you more about their story in this live series, as well as Mission Disposal, who is kind of at the opposite end of the spectrum, really making these solar projects happen. You know, it's a boom, it's a scramble, but these are real estate projects. This is economic development, and they generate waste, even just crates. What do we do with all that stuff? Do the workers have water? And so we're really proud to be brought to you by these 2 terawatt sponsors who kind of represent the broad spectrum. We have one kind of older company, established, large, moving the whole market in broad strokes on the one end, and then we have a much newer, younger company, a startup, if you will, who is helping us catch up and keep caught up and include our local communities. So we're going to kind of get into that full spectrum of issues throughout the series, pinging back and forth between scale, pinging back and forth between the project life cycle, because all this work has to be done to build this renaissance the right way. So we've got our terawatt sponsors, as you see, but we're brought to you by a lot of terrific companies and organizations. We're all kind of pushing this cart together. Monarch Vegetation Services, Sun Tribe, Holland and Knight, and Earned Seeds, as well as BQ Energy, NFP, and Kilowatts Shine, Chesapeake Solar and Storage Association, or CHESA, which used to be a part of SIA, or still is, Cardno, and Sol UNESCO. So
get on with it.
Thanks to all those. And let me mute. Thank you. So then I want to give some shout outs. You know, we're going to extend some beautiful love to some other organizations and some other events that are coming up this fall that you can plug into, because this is a full spectrum renaissance, as I alluded to, and there's a lot of different groups and organizations getting active in the space. We're not doing it alone. We'll be bringing you this new live format every couple weeks, every few weeks through the fall and the winter. But in the meantime, check out some of these other events, like this one coming from the Appalachian Regional Commission, Appalachia Envision, a new era of opportunity. That's October 6th. You can Google that and get to their website. And then we really love this one too, Virginia Clean Energy. We've got our friends at DEQ and Virginia Energy. They're also plugged into this. Similar, kind of a sister conference to our own, but not just concerned with solar, but the broad kind of universe of clean energy and storage and all those things. So I look forward to that one. We've also got a really cool one, Advancing Leadership in Clean Energy. This is C3E Symposium. It's all about women's leadership in clean energy, obviously, but this year the focus is also justice and equity in clean energy. They give out awards, some of the best, brightest brains you can catch there, and you can see the website. Look out for that. And this is more of a local Virginia new event. We're all about making the market here at the Virginia Solar Summit. And this is Pitch Virginia, coming soon. I think they're still taking pitches. If you have a business, the top prize is $15,000. This is not just about solar. This is about startups and everything. And we're encouraging all kinds of growth here at the Virginia Solar Summit, especially entrepreneurship of all kinds. So check that out. And then further down on the timeline, look for Solar Focus 2021, November 15th and 16th. And that's from our friends at CHESA. Always a good conference, will be again. And they're doing really important things, rebranded. Got a new executive director over there who I'm sure we'll get on the show soon for all those updates. Just kind of drop a little bit of news and set the table, pivoting more towards our substantive program today. This was the Solar Future Study, or one of the images from the Solar Future Study that came via the new administration. And you can see many of the different solar applications that they featured, kind of a little bit of everything. We've got rooftops, we've got agrivoltaics, dual use. We see some wind, we see some concentrated solar and storage. We've even got solar panels on top of trucks there, up at the top right. And I loved it. It really spoke to even the photovoltaics, notice in the top left, photovoltaics and agrivoltaics on the farm. It's not so futuristic. I mean, these projects are happening. You might have all seen in the news too recently that in Massachusetts, we had one of the first dual use agrivoltaic setups. They put solar panels over cranberry bogs. I hope you all caught that. So the future is right now. It's happening. And it's big numbers now. It's implementation. We're really scaling. We've been hard at work in this industry for 10 or 15 years. We've seen some ups and downs, but if we go by the Solar Future Study and what we're looking for, it's a tremendous, tremendous amount of solar over the next decade plus, over the next 15 years, and then getting to 2050. So we're looking, if you want to put a big number, it's 1 terawatt of solar by 2035. That's about 5.7 million acres of land in the United States, perhaps. Some of that will be residential. Like, that's why we're putting solar everywhere in that graphic. It's going to be tucked into all kinds of places, on top of parking lots and elsewhere. We're going to need a lot of land, but not so much. That's only 0.3% of all US land, and dwarfed by how much land is saved in agricultural production. So that's kind of national scale. But just in Virginia, because of the Clean Energy Act, we're going to need lots of solar too, hundreds of thousands of acres. But I hope you all caught Judy Dunscombe from the Nature Conservancy during the last Solar Summit. She was talking about, you can find that on our YouTube channel. with a lot of our other backlogged conversations. And Judy very, very powerfully describes this balance between solar construction and conservation, and how Virginia has the land to do both, and probably do it the right way. Take some of our less productive land and put it to solar, and maximize some other opportunities for conservation, be it ag land or forest land and otherwise. And sometimes one can fund the other, but we'll get into some of the new and exciting things that the Nature Conservancy is doing with Dominion and otherwise. The boom is on. I don't think we were supposed to get big news. We hope to bring you big news today about this ongoing tariff beef. We're not going to dive into it today, except just to bring you this headline from our friends at Solar Power World, because Commerce basically punted today. They said that the claimants here tried to file anonymously. They said you can't do that, and so they have another week to come back, and then they'll consider the claim on the merits. But we've seen these kinds of cost raises before. We've had them last year, 20-30% cost increases, and yet we had the biggest solar installation year that we've ever had. So the boom is on. Here's that project that I alluded to from the Nature Conservancy in Dominion, over a coal mine in Southwest Virginia. I hope you all saw that, 1,200 acres. Really, really exciting, 50 megawatts. It's the old Red Onion surface mine, and a sign of the future. And the Nature Conservancy is doing some very, very awesome things, and seeing them partner with Dominion at the early stages of the Renaissance is very exciting, and gives me a lot of hope for the future. Dominion also, we're covering a lot of these things on our blog too, which is very active. But you probably saw this in the news in Dominion's most recent filing to SCC. It's the biggest expansion of solar and storage in history. So over 1,000 megawatts. We're coming, and we're coming big. All right, that's kind of, I just wanted to set the table, throw in some big numbers, because I think it's easy to forget, how far it's early and all this is happening. The pipeline is strong, but it is going to take a long time. These projects are going to come in the chunks, and by the community. So every community is going to get to decide how they participate. This is still economic development. This is still real estate development, and we need local permits and local zoning. I've seen a lot of interesting things. There was a county in Indiana recently who put in a pro-pollinator ordinance to encourage solar developers to put in these new types of habitats for pollinators. So there's all kinds of things coming, and we're going to get to it all. But today, we want to start with one of the original co-collaborators of the Virginia Solar Summit many years ago, and we're so grateful for their support and a lot of the work that not just Ms. Barnes is doing, but a lot of the folks there at Appalachian Voices have done for us and for the solar space and just environmental justice broadly. I'm going to turn to Chelsea now. She's managing their federal legislative work, especially related to abandoned coal mine reclamation, black lung, and coal field community revitalization and transition in general, as well as their Southwest Virginia legislative portfolio at the Virginia General Assembly, and especially including solar and just transition policy. So she really is plugged into the scene. She's seen this miraculous legislative evolution over the last few years. And we're really thrilled to have her because she's going to be taking a long vacation here pretty soon. And I think this might be her last kind of public availability for a while. Is that right, Chelsea?
I think so. Well, that's a safe bet.
Yeah. Yeah, if we could get started, can we just, we want to focus more on stories in the live stream. Can you begin just big picture, who you are and how you got into this space and how you kind of find yourself in this position now at Appalachian Voices?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me today. I'm our legislative director at Appalachian Voices, managing both, our federal work and then our Southwest Virginia work, policy work. I spent about 10 years as a policy analyst as part of the Desire project. If folks are deep in the clean energy policy world, you've probably used the Desire database. That's where I got my start on clean energy policy many years ago in North Carolina. and then launched a business with my colleagues called EQ Research, a clean energy policy consulting company that I worked with that company for about 5 years. And then a few years ago, decided I really wanted to dig in on advocacy, and found my home here at Appalachian Voices, moved to Virginia, and have been helping with the really amazing economic development work that Appalachian Voices has been doing for 5 or 6 years here in the coalfield region of Virginia. So the last few years, I've been really focused on helping to bring a solar industry to the region. For us, it is just so crucial that we are bringing along these coalfield communities that have powered our nation for more than a century. We need to bring them along in the clean energy revolution. So I'm just super proud of the work that our organization does in this region. I think it's so critical if we want to have a successful transition to 100% clean energy. We got to bring everyone along. So we're doing the work right here where it matters most.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is kind of here right now. Tell me a little bit more about the specific work, because I've even seen you at local meetings and things like that. Like, you guys are really, and at Appalachian Voices, you're kind of going community by community and project by project to help, encourage each of these as best you can.
Yeah, so we're Appalachian Voices work broadly touches on a lot of different issues and policy matters and technology. Here in Southwest Virginia, we are part of the Solar Work Group of Southwest Virginia. That is a coalition of organizations, including the Nature Conservancy and Department of Mines, Minerals, and Energy, now the Department of Energy, and People Incorporated, a low-income housing provider, and a lot of our local governments here in Southwest Virginia, where we've been doing really great solar work for about the past 5 years as part of this work group. That is really locally driven work. The localities here were among the first to get SolSmart certified in Appalachia. So we're really proud of that. Southwest Virginia is open for business, and that's just really becoming apparent here, especially in the last few weeks. Even we've had so many big announcements about really big solar projects that really just are proof that the work that we've been doing for the past 5 years, that community-driven work, is really making a difference. So yeah, I guess some of the really exciting stuff that's been happening. A couple weeks ago, announced a 75 megawatt solar project in Buchanan County, which is a coalfield community. That project is going to be on an abandoned mineland site. It's getting federal funding from this abandoned mineland pilot program, which is an economic development program from the federal government. That will power tens of thousands of Virginia homes and create hundreds of jobs in Buchanan County. And that's on top of, so that's 75 megawatts if you're counting. Then we've got about 120 megawatts from the Nature Conservancy across their various abandoned mineland programs. So we expect in the next 5 years, we're going to see about 200 megawatts of utility scale solar on coal mine land right here in Southwest Virginia. And that is all just from innovative projects, collaborative projects, and folks having the vision to see these mine lands and think we could put solar on those mine lands. So really exciting stuff happening in the mine land solar development world right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about kind of Appalachian Voices? I know, and I think I mentioned at the top, you guys have won some grants. I was plugged into the Appalachian Regional Commission, had its awards show last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago now, and you guys took down one of those grants. So congratulations, well deserved. And what are you going to do with it?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I have this. I'm so excited. We did win this large grant it's a $1.5 million grant from the Appalachian Regional Commission that is going to go support hard to reach projects throughout the coalfield region of Appalachia. So not just in Virginia, but across the central Appalachia region. And that is going to support things like small commercial projects that it's really hard to get PPA financing for, or nonprofits that just can't access grant funding for one reason or another, or school projects that they just need some extra technical assistance to push a project from beginning to end because school staff is just too overstretched to really dedicate time to those projects. So that's really the goal with that fund, is to support those hard to reach projects that would be really good solar projects and really impactful solar projects in the places where they are, really saving schools money, helping a small business stay afloat throughout COVID. Those are the projects this fund is going to target. And it's been a long time in the making. We got a technical assistance grant several years ago to develop the idea for the fund. I remember sitting in a coffee shop in Richmond, working on this while I'm also trying to lobby at the legislature. So we've been really working on it hard for a few years now, and just finally won this grant, and we're really excited to launch that fund here in the coming months. So if you haven't seen the announcement, it's the Appalachian Solar Finance Fund. You can Google it and it should pop up, and there are ways to sign up to get updates. So if you're a solar developer and you've got projects that are in the Appalachian region that you think could just use a little funding boost or a little financing help, please stay in touch, or find the website and stay in the loop, because it's going to be some exciting work.
Absolutely. I think, the Solar Finance Fund, seeing Appalachian Voices add that to kind of your toolbox is just tremendous. You've been putting out great resources, you show up to the meetings, you're doing all these things, but to step into the crannies of the capital stack and help all of these kind of right there projects get over the hump and become viable, I think that really greases the wheel and will help, again, fill the gaps. Because the great thing about Virginia is, it wasn't starting from scratch with the Clean Energy Act. I mean, the last couple of years, it's been more formalizing, and the markets have been developing structure, but there was a lot of corporate solar that had gone in the years prior, and a lot of other projects. And that's why I think we've seen such a turn. We've seen Dominion Energy just fully embrace in the private sector. I think everyone is kind of aligned, but that doesn't mean that the market is perfect. The free market is the free market, and so everything that you guys are doing there at Appalachian Voices has helped get us here. But now with the fund, and thanks to the Appalachian Regional Commission to make it happen. I mean, we really are lining up a lot of the things that we're going to need to build our highest and best renaissance as collaboratively and equitably and inclusively as we can. And you mentioned schools. So even, we have a lot of these places, big buildings with large roofs and some extra, the back 20, are next to the solar, big parking lots and all these things. Talk to me more about how you guys are helping, the hyper local institutions, get plugged into the renaissance.
Yeah, so it's been, trying to get access for schools to solar has been, a really long battle, but we have finally made some real progress. Just a couple weeks ago, we announced, or the Solar Developer Secure Futures announced that they're moving forward with the first school solar project west of Roanoke. That's going to be right here in Wise County, and it is just phenomenal work that has taken place over a number of years. Power purchase agreements have been blocked in Southwest Virginia, and until just this past year. And now with that opening up from, work at the General Assembly, I feel like we're just going to see a wave of solar projects. So we've been working closely with a lot of the local governments and local schools here, that they're primed and ready. And now that PPAs are finally available in Southwest Virginia, I think we're just going to see so much success. And that has come from the Virginia Clean Economy Act, expanded the power purchase agreement program to Old Dominion Power and Appalachian Power. That was 2020. Then in 2021, we had to get clarification from the General Assembly that schools and local governments were eligible for that PPA program. And then we had to keep working hard at the local level with my friend Carol Davis, who's leading the charge from Blacksburg. She did really amazing work with the steering committee of local governments in APCO territory to make sure that their new contracts allowed for PPAs and net metering. So just all that local collaboration, policy work at the state level and local work, all came together to now that we have this first solar project on a school in the Coalfield region of Virginia, and even just west of Roanoke. It's just kind of amazing that it took this long, but now we're here and it's really exciting. I think we're just going to see the floodgates opening up with solar on schools.
Yeah, absolutely. That revenue is really attractive. And so what do you think? You mentioned a few of them, but going forward, shared solar, virtual net metering, like what does the market need going forward to lean all the way in?
Yeah, we've seen great progress at the policy level in Virginia in the last few years, the Virginia Clean Economy Act and new shared solar programs and things like that. But we just still have such a patchwork of solar policies in Virginia that it makes it really hard for a lot of our solar developers to do business and for solar to be equitable in Virginia. Because right now we have a lot of these programs that like the RPS that has a distributed generation carve out, that's only available in Dominion territory. The shared solar program is only available in Dominion territory. So that leaves out all of the rural communities and Southwest Virginia communities, aren't able to access these programs. So that's what we're really focused on in the coming year is expanding shared solar access to Southwest Virginia and rural parts of Virginia. And then also just trying to find more ways to unlock equitable solar access through things like multifamily net metering and virtual net metering for our localities. We've got this pilot program in Fairfax County that allows for a locality to put solar on their landfill and then apply the credits to buildings that are owned by the locality that aren't right on site. And you can't do that anywhere else other than this pilot program in Fairfax County. So we'd really like to see that expanded out so that we can take advantage of landfills for solar development. It's so important from a conservation perspective that we're maximizing things like mine lands and landfills and other brownfields, as I'm sure Vince will talk about. That there are ways that we can do this sustainably, but we have to unlock these little problems where we just continue to have barriers to those kind of best practice projects.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the private sector this is why I'm so constructive about the future is now even Wall Street's getting behind us. Like the money is starting to flow, the capital is there. And if we can, unlock all the bottlenecks, as you said, it'll get a lot easier. Or we can encourage the types of development that we want, even, kind of at each level. At federal level, we're setting policy statewide, but then at the local level, we have a lot of some variability in what these projects looks like and where they go. So I think, I think there's like 125,000 acres of mine land in Virginia. So if we need 300,000 or 400,000 acres of ground mounted solar, the mine land can get us a lot of the way there. So sensitive to our time, if anybody has any questions for Chelsea, feel free to drop them in the chat. I think we answered a couple.
Yeah, I did see from Carol Davis, she asked how those utility scale projects I mentioned affect the net metering caps. So they do not count towards the net metering caps because if you're larger, if you're that large of a project, you're not eligible for net metering anyway. So that all those utility scale projects do not impact the net metering cap. You have to be 3 megawatts or less to be able to net meter. And then I think I saw a question about co-ops as well with community solar or shared solar, depending on what you want to call it. And yeah, right now they've got a small pilot program for the electric cooperatives in Virginia, but we're working to see if we can find a solution to open up that market more next General Assembly session.
Awesome. And what about, I want to ask you about Washington, but there is this program, new Brightfields program at Virginia Energy, formerly known as DMME, but it dependent. It hasn't been funded yet, so they need to get funding from Washington. So can you speak to that a little bit? Walk us through those mechanics.
Sure. So yeah, I've been trying my hardest to unlock some federal funding to fund that program at Virginia Energy. As folks may know, this past legislative session, we did pass a bill that creates a program to provide grants on brownfields and coal mine lands, for renewable energy projects on those sites. With the Nature Conservancy projects, we see that sometimes, private investments and just large scale projects and other existing grant funds can unlock these brownfield projects and mine land projects. But really that's been most successful with really large projects. And so I think this fund is really crucial for us to start seeing more, smaller scale commercial projects be able to get funded, because brownfield projects are just inherently going to be a little bit more expensive, or significantly more expensive than your typical greenfield projects. So, we're continuing to work on getting some federal grant funding. I was hoping that by this time maybe we'd have some good news from the federal level, but things are just really stalled out right now. If you're following Twitter today, it's just quite a scene up on the hill. So we're, hopeful that we'll see some stuff get from the federal government, but we also still are going to continue to pursue state funding. We've got a big budget surplus this year in Virginia, and the state is really committed to seeing clean energy development. So let's make it happen in disadvantaged communities and on brownfields. There's no reason why we can't get some state funding in that fund as well. So we'll work on that as well. So nothing in the fund yet, but we are very far from giving up on that.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of money out there, record cash reserves on Wall Street, and lots of other funding mechanisms. Maybe there's rumors about, or no, I think it's in the House bill, master limited partnerships for renewables, which is something that oil and gas have taken big advantage of. So I think lots of reasons why the Renaissance powers forward no matter what. And thank you for the excellent segue to our next speaker, Mr. Maiden from DEQ. We're going to be talking a lot more about brownfields to bright fields, and landfills. But Chelsea, before we let you go, we're at this pivotal moment, kind of the end of the beginning of the Renaissance, and it's about to get really, really exciting. I know you believe in a brighter future. You've started a family. Looking back for posterity, can you give us like one idea, one thought, or one final word for the next generation, maybe looking back however many years from now on YouTube?
Oh gosh, ask a pregnant lady about her message for future generations. I think just that all this work takes time, and don't let one failure get you down, and don't let 5 failures get you down, because it could be the 6th try that gets you there. So I think we all just have to keep our keep the gears rolling, don't give up, and keep pushing forward. And we're going to continue making great strides and seeing really amazing success if we can all continue to work together for that brighter future. Thanks for having me, Dan.
Yeah, thank you, Chelsea. And thanks for all the work these many years getting us to this point. It certainly wasn't easy. It was kind of one at a time, sometimes, by the policy, by the project, and by the square foot. But here we are now, and I couldn't be more thrilled about this near-term future, all these projects, and all the work that you and all of your colleagues at Appalachian Voices are doing for us. So thank you again. Thanks for joining us, and enjoy your time off. Congratulations.
Thanks.
We'll see you soon. All right, and with that, let me bring in our next featured guest to the Virginia Solar Summit live stream show, Mr. Vince Maiden. Vince, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hey, who's your friend there?
Well, I call him Solar Sheep, but he really needs a name. So if anybody wants to name him, this little guy is the grazer on this solar facility, one of them. And he, we're welcome to make him our mascot if you'd like. So,
yeah, it's a vision of the right now. I mean, people are already out there. We've got solar shepherds on solar farms herding their sheep. It's in the field. It's really exciting, and more all the time. And you saw the
Sunshine, Apollo, and George so far. So we'll have to maybe have some votes later after the show. So.
Awesome. Yeah, we've got speaking of mascots and whatnot, we do have our official Virginia is for Solar logo back here. We still have some t-shirts available on the Virginia Solar Summit store. If you want to go to our website, you can purchase those and wear your future, wear the future with pride. And Mr. Maiden, right on cue with dropping the Virginia's for Solar in the background. Well done, sir. I know that you have 1 or 2 for speaking of families, you're a father with a young family. Like I just got my little guy in kindergarten, and I think all of us on the call today, have a little extra passion on making these next couple decades really count the most that they can.
Yeah, and I would add that Virginia is also for brownfield lovers too. So, maybe I need that T-shirt. But yeah, hearing all this talk from Chelsea about Southwest Virginia warms my heart, being born and raised in Southwest Virginia, and I actually sound like I'm more from Southwest Virginia than Chelsea. Just pointing that out. So I do have the Appalachian accent, and working on these projects and hearing about Southwest Virginia routinely in my job and in my seat in Richmond is really exciting. So that was a good discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Vincent. Thanks for joining us. Let me wind it back to the top and just give you a proper introduction. You are Vince Maiden. You are a certified professional geologist in the state of Virginia. You're now the Brownfields Program Coordinator at Virginia DEQ, that's the Department of Environmental Quality. And you've been there for 22 years. You've managed multiple sites in multiple communities all across the state. And all your programs, brownfields, voluntary remediation, RCRA, corrective action, solid waste, and petroleum. And you did go to Virginia Natural Resources Institute. So Virginia tried and true, even member of the local government. He served as two terms as a member of the town of Saltville Council, where I know you guys were doing some big planning. But having said all that, Vince, why don't you, like our last guest, I'd like to ask you to start at the beginning, a little bit of your bio. How did you get into this space? Talk about maybe some of your public work. Why did you do that? And how did you find yourself at DEQ leading the Brownfield program?
Well, I mean, I'll go way back to when I was working in the Virginia DEQ office in Abingdon in Southwest Virginia. I was in the petroleum storage tank program. I didn't have all this gray hair, much younger, but I started out doing regulatory work in petroleum. I went into the solid waste program, got to work on landfills, which was great training for what we're talking about now, putting solar on landfills and such. And then went into hazardous waste, and then found my true love 5-6 years ago with brownfields and working for Meade Anderson. And man, it's the job that really gets me inspired to go to work every day. I mean, brownfields, you get to do so many good things, work with so many good communities, and I saw that opportunity to really give back. And my work in local government kind of inspired that too. And anybody that's ever sat on a town council, that's about as painful as being, in Washington. I mean, but because everybody knows you, they know where you live and they can find you. So that was a good learning to know what you guys deal with at a local level to make projects happen. And but also I can understand what a small community's pains are. So in brownfields, there's a lot of stuff new that's not really new to us. I mean, we've been, before me, Meade Anderson for many years was beating the drum on, hey, let's put solar on landfills and brownfields. I mean, many, many years before we actually started seeing large scale interest in it. We've always been promoting the reuse of brownfields since the inception of the program statewide, including mine lands. And we've always pushed equity. So we've always been a program that really wants to make sure that brownfield resources have been accessible to all communities across the Commonwealth. There's been always a focus on, getting that to smaller disadvantaged communities. Now, I have to admit, it's ramped up at DEQ, which is exciting for us. We now have an environmental justice division. There's more commitment to it. People are more excited about the brownfield work we do. And the program's growing. So I found my true love. I don't think you're going to see me working in any other space at DEQ until I retire and hand the keys to somebody else.
Yeah, it's a great agency that you guys have there with a lot of great people. I can speak to that personally. And Mr. Meade Anderson, of course, is incredible. I've seen him testify before Congress. You guys can Google for that. And you can Google some great sessions from the last Solar Summit, or it's available on our YouTube channel with Meade and Vince, and kind of digging into the details of exactly how they help communities, all the tools that they have and the resources. And there's some of the smartest folks out there too, willing to pick up the phone and talk you through things. So Vince, down to business a little bit, give us it's the fall season. That means the US EPA brownfield grants are out there. A lot of brownfield activity, a lot of activity in Washington, more broadly defined. We've already had some big bills go through Congress. what Chelsea was just mentioning, the infrastructure bill that's getting ugly out there on Twitter and beyond. But programmatically, can you give us an update of what you guys are doing down there, the Brownfield program?
So I guess I'll give you a start with the EPA grants you mentioned. I mean, in Virginia, EPA Brownfields grants over the last 5 years, we've had tremendous success by our communities going after those grants and being awarded those grants, significantly above national average. It's a very competitive program, maybe 1 out of 3, and we've been doing 2 out of 3 at least in Virginia. So kudos to all the communities that are doing that. We as a program market that tool. We help people figure out how to get those resources into Virginia, and we even apply for those grants ourselves. So last year we applied for one to help the South Side Planning District area in Virginia, and it was intended for use to do planning and assessment on brownfield sites with the intent to promote renewable energy development. We just got that EPA award. We're getting our contract in place, and we'll soon take off on that project. So that's really going to be pushing renewable energy even more with federal dollars through DEQ in that region. So we're super excited about that. The other thing we're doing is it's time to write the grants again. So there's an open grant competition. So anybody on the call that really is interested in EPA grants, it's open now. It may be hard to get it together to write one now, but we can at least start planning for next year. So you can contact me. That can be used to promote renewable energy development. We've proved it with the grant we were already awarded. So if that's your space, that's great, because you can do environmental assessments that pave the way for liability reduction on brownfield sites with that. And you can do redevelopment planning, which could be solar feasibility, storage project feasibility, all that work, soft costs that people don't like to pay for, could be done with grant money. The other great tool we have in Virginia is the Virginia Brownfields Assistance Fund, which is the state brownfields grant funding. The General Assembly wisely puts $2.25 million a year into that. It's been a great program to help revitalize sites all across the Commonwealth. I don't have the map, but it's from one end of the state to the other. We've awarded funds. That includes assessment and planning money, like I just talked about, and remediation money. We've given out 160 grants since 2011 when it was first funded, 132 planning and assessment, and 28 remediation grants. And it's about $13 million. So there's money out there to help reach some of your brownfields redevelopment goals. And like Chelsea mentioned, I would argue at one point, I think brownfields are slightly more expensive in most cases to redevelop. I think often developers misunderstand how much different they would have to do to put solar on a brownfield. And every time we would talk to one, they kind of realize that. The big catches often are, where are these brownfields located? How close to transmission? It's the same problems that come out in a green space development. So I would urge people to definitely consider brownfields when you're looking at solar development opportunities in your community. Consider those first, because that's land that people want to see reused and might not object to solar power on. So that's kind of the grant scene, Dan.
Yeah, terrific. And love what you say there about brownfields kind of being the path of least resistance. There's less reasons to not redevelop a brownfield into anything, but solar works. And yeah, I don't know, sometimes they're cheaper than a greenfield. It depends on where the greenfield is and how far away it is from interconnection. That's one of the biggest cost elements. But sometimes a brownfield might be a little bit slower than a greenfield, depending on where exactly it's at or what kind of brownfield, what kind of program it's in. But Vince, let me ask you, as a real pro and professional who knows and loves public engagement and even served in government, speak a little bit more about kind of this NIMBY issue. I've been saying for a long time, since the last summit now, kind of it's the end of the beginning. As we scale up, Virginia's got to do 15x more solar. There's going to be a lot more solar in a lot more places and a lot more communities, and they're going to have to come to terms with that. And how do you see that? How are we going to walk down that path kind of together into this new future of solar development at scale?
Yeah, I mean, I think in Virginia, we're already seeing some pushback from like large scale solar development. And some of that comes from, the people don't want the farm next door developed into solar panels. They don't want to see large, solar panels near their residential neighborhoods, or the drive they enjoy, watching the cattle or the sheep or the horses on. They don't want to see solar panels. So there's some of that NIMBY attitude. And I don't personally think that it's always a bad idea or not in the best interest to develop farmland that may be underutilized into solar or renewable energy opportunities. However, brownfields are often more acceptable for people to look for redevelopment opportunities on. Many of them, like the mine lands in Southwest Virginia, are out of sight for a lot of folks, and offer big expanses of land to develop on. So I think if you look at those sites that the community might want to see reused first, and then you take the time to publicly engage the community, which brownfields and brownfields grants are always going to encourage public engagement. If you take the time to do that, win the hearts and minds to some solar development on brownfield projects, then that can help you with the rest of the goals within the community, within the area. And they have input on where these things go, not just here it is, enjoy it, and you won't get that opposition in the 11th hour because you've already engaged them. You've already let them have a voice. And we really push that in the Brownfields program on sites we work on and in communities that we engage.
Yeah, and there's a lot of best practice documents like EPA, US EPA has a lot of those, community engagement. I like to say you either deal with the community first or last, and you prefer sooner rather than later, because if you're dealing with the community last, it's usually blowing up your project. And I think there's genuine, in this land rush, this Great American Land Rush, there's a lot of genuine interest in developing community benefits right into the soil. These are large, especially at scale, they're such large parcels, you can do so much, whether it's sheep or bees or butterflies. The cranberry bogs that I mentioned earlier are fantastic examples of the future of agrivoltaics. But I've seen community paths built along beautiful seeded pollinator habitats next to the solar panels. So there's all kinds of ways that the community can directly benefit, in addition to some of the direct payments that Chelsea was talking about in the last session, which is important. There are opportunities for communities to develop their own solar, even directly through the brownfield program.
Agreed.
But what about getting to yes? Like Vince, how do you get people motivated and excited about brownfields? Solar is I think even maybe relatively more exciting. We never got to put sheep on top of a brownfield in our backgrounds before. But how have you, in all your experience, gotten people to yes?
It really starts with conversations, right? So in our program, Mead coined the term brownfields individualized outreach. So, and many times we go out and cold call communities that have brownfields needs. They may not even know they have brownfields needs or brownfields opportunities for solar development and other things. And the way we go is we approach communities, we get to know them, we get to know their community, let them tell us about them, and then we show them the brownfields tools. And then we help them identify sites they might want some of the help that we can offer. And I think really that would apply to a solar developer that wants to do a brownfields development. If you don't know the community, you don't know the key players early, you're going to run into resistance. And people in small communities especially, they want to have those conversations. They want to take time to build trust with you, whether you're from Dominion Energy or from the state or from just a private solar developer or investor. They want to get to know you. And I think people don't slow down sometimes enough to build those relationships. And, life is about relationships. And it's the same in our business world. If you don't have them, things are just not going to go well. So take the time, slow down, build those relationships, build the trust, and then do the project. I mean, that's kind of one of my learnings through what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to come easier in Virginia than a lot of other places because of just the general spirit that Virginia has. It's the number one state to do business. Again, I think a lot of folks saw that in CNBC. Um, and there's, red counties and blue counties, but Virginia works together. And I think, when it comes to solar development, even there is some resistance to ground mounted solar, but there's so much benefit to it, even in the kind of lowest, even without sheep on agricultural land. It's still fallow land, basically. These are long-term interim projects, 25, 30 years. The soil's gonna be allowed to rest. There'll be some vegetation on there, and we can always come back and reuse that land. So it's not permanently developed. You're not putting up a skyscraper. It's going to be real easy to put down. And we're going to have Mission Disposal, Terawatt sponsor on. We're going to be talking about some of these end life cycle issues, recycling solar panels. I think it's the number one question that I hear in some of these community meetings that I go to. For many years now, there's a lot of things people say in planning meetings, but the question about what's the environmental impact of these solar panels and are they recyclable? What happens to them when they're gone is always at the top of the list. But that's my perspective. What about you, Vince?
Yeah, I mean, even from my, counterparts at DEQ, I often hear like, well, this is all great, but what about the disposal and the end life of these solar panels? And they quote the stats about how many million tons of waste it's going to generate. And, my answer to that is, well, we have time to plan for it. So let's figure out what we do. Let's figure out how much material we can use. Let's figure out the best way to manage disposal, reuse. I think technology is going to get better. They're going to last longer, but we can avert some of these with some of the experts, like you mentioned, one of our sponsors. So, let's plan for it now. So yeah, it's good. It's good to have the conversation, but you don't want to let a future problem or a future potential problem stop progress now. So let's move ahead. We're problem solvers in this country. Let's solve the problem.
Yeah, and brownfields and mine lands, it is land recycling. At step one, it's land recycling. That's a big check mark on the box.
Yeah.
And so, talk about, why do you see, because you're an early adopter too, DEQ, co-host of the Virginia Solar Summit right from the start, many years now. You guys saw the future. You get the benefits that I've alluded to many times, but can you hit it squarely for us? How do you see the value in this brownfields to brightfields track?
Yeah, I think this all started, I guess, over 4 years ago when Maiden and I went out to Southwest Virginia. We sat down with our friends at DMME talking about, hey, they had some desire to help reuse mine lands. We're already pushing brownfield. So we started talking about what we could do collaboratively. The solar idea was definitely on the table. We went and met with our friends at Appalachian Voices, Adam Wells, talked about how brownfield resources can help their causes. And then from that, our desire to really ramp up our pushing of Brightfields as one of the programs at DEQ started. And then my friend Dan French was doing Brightfield events. And I said, hey, I think Virginia's ready. So we had Brightfields in 2019 and which became the Virginia Solar Summit. And I think we were right. We were right to start it, the conversation. I think this conversation is started. I get calls every week, more than one usually, from solar developers wanting to do brownfields redevelopment and money investors wanting to invest into solar from Europe, from the US, from all over the world. People are interested in what's happening in Virginia. And it's really interesting to me, they keep talking about brownfields. So I think inherently, a lot of corporations want to do that just from, corporate values perspective. The reuse of land looks good to a lot of corporations. I think that could be sold to big corporations like Apple, Google, that want to do clean energy. But how about let's balance the land use while we're doing clean energy? And so we're actually trying to help the cause in Virginia DEQ. We're building a brownfield site selector mapping tool. I would call it brownfield/brightfields. And we're working with our friends at Virginia Energy to contribute to that. Hopefully that will be out in first quarter of 2022. I hope to have that ready. We've already got the foundation for it, and we're working on it through this busy season. But that'll help all these calls that I get, that Virginia the Energy gets, helping people find the sites. We're going to try to put the sites out there, make them available, easy to find, and that way people can choose. Do we want to do the farms, or do we want to do brownfields, or do we want to have a nice balance of both, which is what I see as Virginia's future is finding that balance. And we're here to help promote the brownfield side of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get into a lot of the other benefits throughout this series. If you have a site that's out there, we have a function on our website, the site connector. You might be getting calls, but maybe you want to reach out to a lot of developers at once and kind of collect market feedback. So if you have a site, you can use that portal to enter your site information, and we'll put you in touch with a lot of the solar developers in our community. And yeah, I think what you said about deciding, this conservation versus construction question is going to be answered and re-answered at the local level. And a lot of farmers I'm talking to, they are starting to understand. We're going to get into agrivoltaics. The studies are out there. If you do the farms, the regular agricultural farms around a solar farm that's been planted for pollinators, experience increased yields. You're going to grow more nearby a solar farm. And so a lot of that we're going to be covering, because we sometimes even read the headlines as professionals, but it hasn't sunk into our bones yet exactly what all this bright field development and redevelopment is going to mean, whether it's farmland or brownfields. And I'm really, really excited about mine lands, especially in Southwest Virginia and West Virginia. There's a lot of great things happening out there, and new ways to use power in remote locations. And so the future is very, very bright. If anybody has questions for Vince, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll run this a little bit long. If we do get some questions, we're coming up on the top of the hour. But Vince, are we going to get, there's a lot of brownfield dollars in the infrastructure bill, and it's always a competitive grant process, as you said. It's a meritocracy and objectively scored with the rank scores and ranks and points. But it might never be a better time to apply for a brownfield grant than the next few cycles. Can you speak to that?
If just the infrastructure bill passes as is, EPA is going to get a huge allotment of brownfields money, much of which is designated for grants. Much of it will be designated to go to the states and tribes to promote brownfields. There really has never been a better time to look for federal brownfield dollars if this infrastructure bill passes. I think it'll pass. I think we're going to have a glut of brownfields money. What we do with it as a state, as a nation, it's up to us. I mean, do we design the future the way we want it to be, or we want it for our children? Do we look at all opportunities on brownfields, from putting, low income residential to solar to, market rate real estate to businesses, the new industry that supports the solar and renewable energy? I mean, there's all kinds of options. Brownfields dollars, I think, can be a key to unlocking a lot of those great sites that people are dying to see reused and not just languishing in their community and becoming an eyesore. So it's time. We're actually going to write I'm in the middle of that now. So we're going to put in a proposal for $2 million for Virginia from EPA to get money to do assessment and planning for brownfield sites. Could be also brightfield sites. So wish us luck. And next spring, we may get another $2 million to go on the $300,000 we have now for Southside Virginia. So that would be a big deal to get that much money for us to use across the Commonwealth.
Yeah, absolutely. Best of luck, my friend. I know you'll turn in a strong grant proposal, and there's a lot of communities in Virginia that are grant eligible. I think even nonprofits are eligible now, thanks to the Brownfield Reauthorization that passed in 2019. And there are bonus points for Brightfields. So if you have any solar or energy, I think even energy efficient components in your Brownfield redevelopment project, that might give you a couple extra points in that competition. So I encourage
I think I
everyone to
saw
apply for it.
a question, Dan, from Carol Davis. Who's leading the charge on extending virtual net metering to localities beyond just Fairfax County? That would unlock a lot of brownfield sites for solar, particularly closed landfills. I don't know. Is it Carol Davis leading the charge? Is it, there's a lot of people on this call that make a big difference in Virginia and beyond. I mean, if that's a need, Chelsea is somebody to talk to, but there's other people that can help push policy changes. I'm a policy implementer, so I'm not in the policy discussion as far as, paving new ways. I might show people new ways. We might talk about it at our summit, but there's others of you that really have a voice. And I think the strongest voice comes from locals, local officials, local citizens, local people that want to say, we need this for our community. So go to your local reps, talk to them about policy ideas, policy needs. Sorry, Carol, I know you can do it, so I threw you out there.
No, that's cool. We need everybody. That's the point of this. We want to put folks like Vince in front of you and you guys in front of Vince. We do need everybody. And I was talking about getting those messages down into our bones. Everybody should get up to speed, even grandma. We all need to figure out what this solar boom is all about. And we are, and people just, as cool as it is, and I've seen it for a few years now, but that sheet picture never gets old. And there's a lot of folks who don't know what's coming. And I'll go back to the graphic from the solar future study that was out. We've got photovoltaics. There's a lot of gray water and man-made ponds where we can float solar, a lot of places where we can stick solar, and a lot of communities that can benefit in a lot of different ways, even schools. So Vince, what are final thoughts like from the Brownfield program? People can always reach out to you with questions, correct?
Yeah, I mean, just if you want to see brownfield resources come to your communities, if you want to learn more about our program, just reach out to me, Mead Anderson, who's on this webcast. And also, I mean, my final tip is the future's now. So if you want to see Virginia reuse more brownfield sites to meet their clean energy future, now's the time to stick your nose in, to get to work, to start making it happen, to start, talking to people that's what we want. And because once it's done, it's done. You've seen in North Carolina where a lot of solar went on farms and people didn't like it. So maybe we balance it out here better in Virginia. So now's the time.
Yeah, this is one that we see coming, certainly everybody on the phone, and this is just economic development. We're going to determine them one at a time. So final thought, Vince, look, thinking about your young children, looking to the future, here we are on the cusp of the boom, with all of your wealth of experience and work. Thank you for all that to get us to this point. How do you see the near future? What's your hope or wish or thought for our kids on the other side of this next 15, 20 years?
I mean, really, in clean energy has become a passion of mine. We should have solved this decades ago. We could have solved this decades ago, but we didn't. So my generation, which is getting a little older, we should solve it now for our kids and for our grandkids. And there's no reason with the technology out there that we can't have a clean energy future in this country. And there's no reason brownfields can't be a part of that. So that's why we do this. I hope people will get as excited as I am about it and really get to work. It's time.
Awesome. Yeah, we are certainly hard at work. Thank you, Vince. I know you and Mead, the entire Brownfield program, have been hard at work. You're coming into your busiest time of year, the Brownfield grant application. So I encourage everyone to reach out to Vince with questions, whether you're a grant eligible entity or not. And thank you. We're very fortunate to get you and Chelsea Barnes from Appalachian Voices in before you guys get super busy and lost to us forever. But Vince is always available. He will answer the phone. He will return your call. So thank you, Vince. Thanks to anybody else with questions there. No, I don't see any other questions. So let me get back to the tease for the next show, which will be October 14th, 2021. We're going to be talking to Mr. Brian Anderson, Dr. Brian Anderson from the Interagency Working Group on Coal and Power Plant Communities and Economic Revitalization. really getting right to a lot of the things that Chelsea was talking about from Appalachian Voices. There's a lot of focus on coal fields and the economic revitalization of these legacy energy lands. And Dr. Anderson has been tasked by the White House with the large effort to herd the cats of the many different agencies of our government, but they hit the ground running. They've been doing a lot of tremendous work over the course of this year, and I really look forward to having them on in 2 weeks to brief us and give us an insight to their work and over this last year and their efforts over the next few years to really put a new fire in these coal fields. And I think a lot of it's going to be solar. We need a lot of ground-mounted solar, as everybody knows, and in Virginia and the country. So I want to thank our guests again, Chelsea Barnes from Appalachian Voices and Mr. Vince Maiden from the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. This has been the Virginia Solar Summit live stream. You can rewatch this on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. You can rewatch all of our great content, all of our substantive solar stake out on YouTube. And we're going to start to put these out on a podcast as well. So you guys will be able to take this with you wherever you go and listen to these awesome conversations again. And I hope that everyone goes to Appalachian Voices' website and Virginia DEQ's Brownfield page to learn more about the tools that they have available. It's funding, it's resources and knowledge, and it's all out there. We just have to go grab it and build this future as bright as we can. So thanks again. We'll be back in 2 weeks. This has been the Virginia Solar Summit. Thanks, everybody. The future is bright.